Kind of neat, right? A semi-truck worth of guitars pulled up, and then he had a guitar valet,
He tours like that.
and then he had a guitar tech.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know.
Yeah, so it's not just that. Like, so one of the things that was really cool in Nashville was hearing about all these situations of recording situations and like the escalation of things. So they have these dudes that are like tone liaisons. So there's a guy that's got a truck filled with guitars and amps and pedals
He's
and
just
stuff
ready
like
for
that.
your project.
And you'll hire him and it'll be like, hey, I need this kind of sound. And then he goes into his thing and he pulls out all his stuff and they mic it up or whatever. And then he liaisons the tone.
So interesting.
There's that for drummers.
I see in Count Me In, they have a guy from the Drum Warehouse in California or something like that. He's got like vintage kits back to the like 50s and 60s. He's got, I think he said like, don't quote me on this, someone look it up, like 1,300 snare drums.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. And basically he'll walk through this warehouse with a drummer and be like, let's find a kick and a snare and then tell me what you like in the toms and we'll see if we can build something for you.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have an intimate relationship with each one of these pieces of drums, hardwares, and cymbals.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's the way I like it. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Oh, yeah. And he knows exactly what he's going to go grab, why he's going to go grab it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then why I wanted to play that, and welcome everybody, episode 26,
hey.
the BEL Podcast. I'm Jess, he's Kevin.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about music just like being birthed the way it needs to be birthed.
I like it.
So Keith Richards had a guitar. It was like a Gibson acoustic or something from like the 50s. Apparently he had never played it once. He just owned it. And they were trying to find like this blues pattern. And the guitar tech picked it up, restrung it. He said, hey, the bridge on this is set up for you to do that like blues finger picking and slide picking and stuff. He says, you've never played this before, so I gave it some love, set it up how you like it. Here you go. And they did a one take on the jam that they took, and that was the song that they released. Because it was just, he was like, I picked up the guitar and it was right.
Yep.
And I just thought that was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
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 No, I completely agree. I think it's like, I don't know, they call it different things, like the Muse or whatever. Like there's a cool John Mayer thing with Mac Miller. Do you know he played on a Mac Miller track?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
He's
Rest in
not
peace.
credited for it, by the
Really?
way. Yeah. So the story is, you can find this on Instagram of him talking about it and Mac Miller talking about it too. But basically, he was going over to hang and just check out some music. And he said, usually when that happens, it's like, the thing's already done. I'm not going to go in like, hey, I need to be in here because I'm Mr. John Mayer, blah, 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 blah. So they were hanging out and Mac played him a track and he was just like, hey, can you get me a guitar? And he just like set up, bumped out this line, and there's a guitar track in the back of one of these tunes, and he just asked like no payment, no credit.
Huh.
He just wanted to be on the
It's
song.
like, it just needs me on it.
Well, he had the thing for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just like, oh, I have this. I have to give it to this.
Yeah.
And that's the like weird magic stuff of music or art in general. It's just one of those like, oh, this was bestowed upon me. I need to birth it.
It like captures the moment of creation, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? If you let it.
Well, and I think that's like the term allowance.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like they kind of like letting the stream flow, I think would be like a way of putting it. Because like, I think creativity and allowance, like allowing yourself to engage in creativity, because forcing creativity almost never works.
Never.
It's like,
We talked about this too.
it's just the stream has to flow.
Yeah.
And when the stream is on, allow it to flow.
Yeah.
And every time you try and step in the way of it, you're trying to change the wind, man. Like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Or if it is going to happen, you're going to get to the end of it and you're going to get like Chinese Democracy from Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And you're going to be like, this is the worst waste of money we've ever done.
Yeah.
But
20 years in the making. Whatever.
yeah. Shots fired at that record. But it's just one of those like, okay, yeah, there's this idea of like we throw enough money at something because we see that in terms of like commerce. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to say that Avengers was art, but it's successful and it's fun and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not like an
There's
artistic
moments
thing.
of art.
Well, like, okay, you could argue that it's just an reinterpretation of another person's art.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
Because like the comic books and things like that, the story, the character telling,
It's all written.
yeah, like that. And even if you go further back to the idea of story, like our heroes and villains and
Still good versus
archetypes
evil
and
or
stuff.
whatever,
Yeah,
right?
like that stuff. You could say it's just reinterpretations of that. So maybe that's how that lands. And same with music. Like, there are reinterpretations of things that land and are successful. But the genuine, like, start to finish, this thing just oozed out of me is kind of what I'm trying to describe.
Okay, so that's going to be a great pivot into. I'm going to skip our week catch up, and I want to move right into the low mids.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a topic, y'all. It deserves a little wait. So the video that I watched, I was trying to find it, and I couldn't find it again. I don't know if I couldn't remember the title or not. But what they basically talked about was like, when you have tape, you have limitations. Like you don't have the subharmonics, you don't have those like screechy dog whistle harmonics.
Yep.
You have basically all that middle range, which included highs and lows and mids, right? And a lot of the microphones we were using were ribbon style microphones, which where the tension is where you get the least amount of absorption, which would be the lows and the highs of the ribbon, right?
Yep.
So there is a direct change that you can see over time. Like if you go listen to like say the Beatles and CCR and the Animals and stuff that we've talked about and these documentaries and stuff. And if you take those exact same songs in their new interpretations, it's wildly different. Even if I try to do it to the T and strip out the musicianship, strip out like the superstardom, all that stuff, if we played it as close as we could, it sounds way different. And that is like, there's bit rate, there's all these different things that come into that. But what I find really interesting about that is the recording process hasn't changed that much. You know what I mean? Like an XY pattern is still an XY pattern. And having your room mic set and like where they need to be and having authentic drums, like there's just something about that. It's just the capture is way better now.
Well, the spectrum is more open, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Well, so funny you say the Elvis thing. So have you ever looked at the Elvis remastered? Like, have you listened to that one?
I did, but not like I didn't pay attention enough to like have a conversation about that specifically.
I'll send you what the
It was a long
record
time
is.
ago. Okay.
And I want you, take a wild guess at who did it.
Oh, I don't know. Quincy Jones.
David Bendeth.
Really? No way.
Yes.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
He did the
We're about to listen to that right now.
He did the remix and master to that Elvis tune.
Yeah.
Or the Elvis record. It's a whole record. And it's crazy.
So to that point, if y'all don't know who David Bendeth is, he's famous for doing a lot of like hard rock and like he had like the snare drum that every producer used forever and ever and ever.
Yep.
But he's a purist. Like when you look up David Bendeth, it's a lot of like flute and piano music. And it's a lot of like orchestral music that he mixes. And that makes me really excited to hear that he got his hands on something that's like rock and roll or like heritage rock and roll, right?
Well, I mean, it's a cool reinterpretation, and he's a big fan, and he didn't want to mess it up. And like I listened to this thing of him talk about it, and he just felt
love Elvis.
Yeah, his just terrifying voice. But I mean, like he goes from that, and then Paramore.
Yeah.
Or like Paramore was before that, and then The Warning and all this other stuff, Breaking Benjamins. But it's just really cool to see because like he's working with old stuff, and so when you hear this modern reinterpretation using old analog
Takes
tape
and stems or whatever you want to call it.
yeah, to see the re-expression of that through the modern mixing capability, it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and like what's interesting now is like what we probably took for granted at a certain time is like cherished now.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like that static noise or just like transformer noise that we used to not be able to get away from. We almost want now. And
Well, the 80s was trying to get all of that gone, right?
yeah, and like you even look at the introduction of I can't remember what those drum machines were called, where basically like it had real drum feel and it already had the sounds you wanted, but it was like a program. And it was like this console you could set up. But a lot of that was studio size, downsizing, and portability. You could do it wherever you wanted.
Yeah.
And it's like, even now, like the record that Fry's record we just finished, acoustic drums. And for a situation like that, a guy could do programmed drums, but
Easily.
you know what I mean? Like it's just, it's interesting to see. I don't know what point I'm trying to make here, but I like the comparison of the two.
Well, okay, so there is some element of program drums. I'm not going to hate on it. I use those for demos all the time, and I've heard many records where it sounds really great. The thing is I think to take acoustic drums as a drum kit, as a sound, and to try and build it into an overall sound, that takes skill, right? It's not easy. You have to be okay with certain imperfections. And then the Slate people and anybody who's done sample drums, what they've done is they've removed that. So the organic thing is there. They've recorded it, but they've put it in its ideal situation, and they have it so that there is no inorganicness, or if the inorganicness is planned.
Yeah. So like if you hit a snare drum, you're still getting room sounds.
Yeah.
It's just like it's in a perfect environment, room sound. That's something that we could not recreate in my house right now, right?
And it's like, okay, so the kick drum kicks. Well, when you kick a kick drum, the bottom rattles of a snare.
Yeah.
So the there's a buzz. So okay, well we can have that so it sounds more organic. But that's perfect.
Yeah.
Right? So to get it so it's like, okay, well I hit the kick drum and then the snare right after. So the buzz interacted with the snare drum. Well, it's only going to happen in reality one way. Mm-hmm. You're never going to be able to get it so that those things coalesce to make it organic and nice. But all of those things take a different degree of skill that everybody in the process has to be highly talented.
Well,
so
like
the drummer was really good.
And the drum tech was good. And the mic tech was good. And,
And then the mixer is good. And then the mastering's good. And then the
room was good.
The song was written well. And like all those things are different little...
pieces
of the puzzle, that kind of thing. And I think like if you want to remove people, you need those types of tools to do so. Mm-hmm. So if Fry want to do all that and drum it himself, well, you remove a person. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, yes, you can do it, but then the argument is like, is it better to remove the person, or are we, by removing the people, are we changing the thing?
See, because like the question is can I program drums enough? Or like well enough to replace the process of us setting up a drum kit and miking and all the things, right?
I don't think that's just it though.
I guess like, it has to be a convenience thing too, right?
I think it's a heartbeat thing. I've always thought that.
What do you mean?
Okay, so I had this idea because this was like ironically, you talk about the idea of like the person being the important thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like having an understanding that you yourself is of value.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the thing that you produce. It's the you that is producing it is the important part. And I personally think it's the exact same thing. Like you have a sound when you play guitar. I have a sound when I play guitar.
Okay.
And you could play guitar for me. I could play guitar for you. But the assemblage of all those pieces take different heartbeats, in my opinion, to create it. So I don't necessarily think it's just a matter of getting the drums to be drums. Mm-hmm. I think it's a matter of like, if you can afford to involve more heartbeats of skilled people, that I think adds to it. Whereas if you're going to remove the heartbeat, because like if Fry wanted to do it all himself, one heartbeat.
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, but what would it look like if it was 8 heartbeats?
That's fair. So to bring that to our conversation, do you think that today the expression of that is easier or harder?
I think it depends on the type of music.
Okay.
I think a lot of creators right now are isolated and creating on their own.
Yeah.
Because I don't think...
I'm proof of that.
Yeah. And, well, sort of. You're reaching out.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you're sitting here and et cetera, but like...
No, I mean, even with when you want to create things, you're saying, hey, who wants to be on this?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You extrovert your creativity as well. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that, like, you're just sitting here tooling and only doing it yourself. Same with Fry. Like, he could have done it all that. Like, he played bass on a couple of his tracks, but he wanted a different bass player on a different thing, so I got to play bass on one of his things.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that type of thing technically takes more work, and there's less control. Mm-hmm. But I played it in a way that he wouldn't have played it.
Yeah.
So immediately it's different.
Well, I wrote the song in a way that he didn't write the song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think one is better or worse. I think some people have a hard time working with others, mm-hmm. and they have a full picture view. So say like a composer, mm-hmm. right? If a composer understands all of it and they plan all of it, well, they need, like they've worked out all the parts, mm-hmm. and then they're looking for the expression of those parts. So if I was a digital composer trying to make stuff for cinema or whatever, and I was using digital instruments, well, I need to know the whole picture, and I need to be skilled in all of those things. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just like, okay, well, skill level for an individual creator in terms of the elements that they have to cover, all of a sudden the demand of their skill in each individual area has to go up.
Okay. We talked about that last week. So now if I'm a musician and I want to put out music and I'm deciding to do it myself, I have to be the top-notch engineer.
Exactly.
I have to be all the other things.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that, let's bring it back to low mids. Do you think that the availability of like high quality helps in that today?
To a point. I don't necessarily think that. I don't think that drowning in options is the way to get the most creativity.
Because like I have a problem where if something doesn't sound the way that I want it to sound, I won't pursue it.
Yeah,
But I'm also a technician. I'm like I consider myself a technician before I consider myself a musician, if that makes sense.
sure.
And yes, I play music. I've been playing music longer than I've been a tech, but I fell in love with being a tech before I fell in love with being a musician, right? So I'm curious if that's a part of it. If that's part of the pursuit that I like battle, you know what I mean? Because my creative expression comes from sound more than it comes from chords or lyrics, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you being creative. Okay, so having to figure out the problem in order to get the desired result. So what I'm talking about is
Hold on,
fixed constraint.
I got one for you. So I'm trying to work on these vocal things. I'm trying to get basically as wet a vocal I can without interfering with the vocal.
Sure.
And I've found that I've had to practice singing more to get the performance so I can work on it the way I want to.
Sure.
So now, like, because I could call a singer and ask them to sing it for me, but because I'm doing it by myself, I have to be the singer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm comfortable with the recording and the editing and the mixing. That's the part that I'm pursuing, but I have to be the better singer to do that.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Well, what you're showing is you're showing constraints.
Interesting. Yeah.
So by having a constraint and still having the desire to pursue the end result in spite of constraint.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, like if you take it back to earliest recordings,
Yeah.
right? So like your Robert Johnson's and stuff like that.
Sure.
Where it's like hotel room, one microphone, tape deck, like really early.
Mm-hmm.
But the desired result is there. So whatever constraint is going to be faced along the way, it's going to take, it's not going to matter because the desire is at the end of it.
Okay.
Right? So I think that as you go through the history of recording, the constraints get less, seemingly, because you have more and more technology, more and more option. But now all of a sudden you've introduced a new constraint, which is too many options.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I got you.
So like, do you remember Bon Iver?
No.
Okay, so Bon Iver is this folk guy.
Okay.
And he made this record once that took a Grammy for Best New Album. The whole story, the whole like myth around this thing was that he went out to a cabin in the woods with a Beta 57 and an LA 610.
Nice.
And he made a record.
I bet.
Now, I don't know how much of that is totally true. I talked to a buddy of mine who is a buddy of his. So anyways, there was some of that. But this idea of like extreme constraint.
Yeah.
I got these two things.
And I'm going
to do whatever I can to get those
Interesting.
things.
Yeah.
And that's where like the added constraint can force extra creativity because the desired end result is there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Whereas if you give that same dude the same level of options that is out there now, and you don't have, you have a different type of constraint.
Slate thing.
Exactly. You have a different type of constraint, which is like too many choices.
Yeah.
The thing doesn't come out the same because the constraints aren't there, but the desired result would sift through the constraint to get to the desired result, right? Mm-hmm. Assumedly.
Interesting.
But I think giving ourselves constraints is important.
Interesting.
Personally, I think selective constraint and giving ourselves enforced limitations to make it so that we have to work for the desired result, I think is a stimulating thing for our brain.
Interesting.
Like, do you ever watch that It Might Get Loud with Jack White?
Yeah, you and I have watched that a couple times. Yeah.
One of the things that he said is like he likes a performance to be a struggle. So if he's going to go switch a pedal at a certain point in a song and it's too easy for him to get there, he'll push the pedal board further away.
Interesting.
So it's just a little bit too hard.
Making
and he
him,
has to
like,
work
mindful.
a little harder to get to the thing that he wants. And that idea is pretty interesting to me. Where it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, so he can have whatever he wants. But he thinks that to get the desired result takes effort.
Because like he wouldn't even have to press that button if he didn't want to. Someone else could press
There
it.
could be 8 guys.
There are people lined up willing to take that as a volunteer position.
Absolutely.
But he's going to make it,
It could all be on a track. It could not matter at all.
Yeah, it could just
right?
be, yeah, okay.
But the idea of the effort adding something to the creative expression and the like struggleness of it, like another buddy of mine, Brad Sample, phenomenal guitar player. His guitars are set up like crap. They're amazing guitars built by great guys.
Work for it.
But they were always like really heavy action and just like tough. Like they were just tough to play.
Interesting.
And that was a part of his thing.
Okay.
And you could see it. He would just like pull stuff out of those things. You could see that he was working his ass off.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something to that, man. Like maybe it's just like, okay, as you add constraint, then the expression is just different because the effort has increased in order to get to the desired result.
Okay. So let's keep that going in this topic here. I'm going to try really hard to keep this topic.
Yeah, low mids, right?
So if I didn't do my homework and if I didn't look at all the history and how they recorded stuff and I took a old like Bon Scott AC/DC record and I went, I'm going to try to recreate this. One of the first things I'm going to do is just pull the low mids out. Like just bury them because then you get that low thud and you got the little bit of like the high mid that's bitey and stuff like that. And that's kind of the sound that they were constrained to.
Yeah.
But today it's different.
Yeah.
Because there are all those other things. So I'm starting to see an attention to that low mid that I haven't heard in a long time. Enough that like it kind of made me go like something like there must be an instrument or something here that I haven't heard in a while. And I went, oh, it's just like a really present low mid. And I noticed it in vocals, and now I'm starting to notice it in the whole mix.
So when we're talking low mid,
Yeah.
what's your frequency band that you're considering?
So
Everybody describes this differently.
I always go to live scenarios, which is a little bit lower than studio scenarios. I've kind of noticed. So like mine would be anywhere from like 200 into like the 300s, like mid to high 300s. In the studio, it's more like 250 to 500.
Sure.
Like up in that kind of space there. But it seems like it seems like a lot of mixes that's just missing, and that's okay because instant clarity and like the boxiness is gone. But it seems like there's something special about those records that have it. And to the conversation of like things being recorded similarly to how they used to be, I wonder if that's just like an appreciation for the art, searching for that. Do you think it's been missing for a while and now like people are looking for it?
So I think that what you had said, like an easy way to okay, if you want to clean something up, as in get rid of muddle, like mud is really poorly addressed mid-range. So if it's poorly addressed mid-range and you have too much of it, what do? You just start axing rather than properly address it. So I think what you're seeing more tools available to address something that I don't know if we really knew how to. Okay, so like if you think about it, like what's a Neve EQ, right? You got a low shelf, you got a mid, sweepable mid usually, and then a high shelf. So okay, maybe I'm gonna take this on a vocal. So I'm gonna lob off some low end, and I'm gonna put some support in like 100, and then that middle shelf I might push the noise, like the enunciation
Like
stuff.
3.2 or
somewhere in
something
there,
real high.
and then I'm gonna get some air in there. So I'm gonna use that high
12K,
exactly, get some brightness and some like aggression. So what didn't I address?
That low mid.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So I don't necessarily think it's like that these things are, because like what you described earlier, when those consoles were around, what was everything? Mid-range.
It was all mid-range.
So what you needed is
Plus your microphone
clear,
was mid-range.
Exactly. You needed clear amplification for your lows and your highs. And your mid-range was already there in abundance.
So them cleaning it out and it's still kind of filling out the shelf as much. Because like when you start getting that Q real tight, or if you use like a 31 band EQ and you're pulling a frequency at a time, man, like you can pull 250 and fill other things in and make it like pretty like clean.
Personally, I think if you're ever doing that, you screwed up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know if you've ever listened to like Sweetian talk.
No.
Bruce Sweetian, he was like Celine Dion mixer guy. And his whole thing was like microphone.
Yeah.
Like if you need to grab those things, you screwed up. Get a different microphone.
So here's a question for you, and I'm racking my brain for the Angelina Jordan video it is, but she's singing into a vintage U87.
Sure.
Or the Neumann one. But
Well,
it's,
there's many Neumanns, but yes.
yeah, the classic one. 45 degrees this way.
Sure.
And I argued that was to remove some low end from her voice.
Could be.
It could be.
Could be.
It could be the complete opposite of that too.
Was she close to it or far away?
It's right in front of it.
So it could be to deviate plosive.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, plosive is that.
Purple. This will do it too, but yeah.
So there was a bunch of tricks that they used to do there. There was a pencil. So you'd put a pencil right in front of the.
Oh, so it would just separate off. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, I did that once. We did that with a couple of elastics.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
You pop a pencil in there and it just takes the edge off of that front.
Yeah.
But
You could hang it upside down and like at a back angle, so you put the wind past it.
Yep.
And so I just took that idea and I just imagined that if I turned it this way, it'd be similar.
Well, and like a microphone, depending on the angle of that, the tonality of it changes. So it could be to take out some mid range for sure.
Well, when you just did that, we lost a bunch of mid-range.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it depends on the microphone.
Okay.
Like if she was into say a U67,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Maybe a U87, but they're not super. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure there's a genius reason because people don't suck at things. But like, it could be getting the energy across the capsule in a different way too. You know what I mean? At an angle rather than head on. Softens things up quite a bit rather than making it too intense. Like, I don't know if her voice has a lot of attack to it.
It does. Like she has a lower kind of register. I think someone says that someone told me that she actually has like an enlarged like palate, like on the roof of her mouth.
Sure.
Or something like that. And it's like naturally made her voice like just sit lower. But it's got like she just turned 18, man. It's got like this to it, right? This like snap, like when she wants it to. So she's got a really characteristic heavy voice, I would say. And I wouldn't be surprised, like, especially when she sings like low legato notes, I wouldn't be surprised if they had to remove a little bit of that from the source.
But like, think about what we're describing, right? Okay, so like, okay, she's got this microphone, beautiful microphone.
Yeah.
And what could they do later? They could EQ that out.
Yeah, but they don't want
What
to.
did they do?
They turned it. That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm saying. Constraint, right?
Yeah.
Like, this idea of creativity and constraint. I think there is something to that of like, get the thing the way that you need to get the thing.
Okay. That's interesting.
It's they always talk about the idea of source being the like,
starts at the source.
Starts at the source, and then if you have to fix it later, like
do it in post.
do it in post thing. And I mean, I'm victim of that too. I did that a lot. I did that a lot though. You know what I mean? Like, because it's cheaper. You know what I mean? And you think that's kind of like giving it to God. Like, hey, there's going to be a magic force here.
Kevin, take the wheel.
Yeah, seriously though, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh yeah, this guy can fix it. Who cares? But like, no. Take responsibility for the thing at the source and do that the best that you can in whatever way you need to, and then step it on down the road. Because then if you do that I think will kind of create a better flow downstream, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, like, to the modern versus the vintage, like if I capture the whole wide array of information, then I have to do with it what I want. Like they talk about in cameras, full frame. There's no crop to the sensor. So you get to choose the size when you go after, right? So if you want 16 by 9, if you want by 9 by 16, it doesn't affect the quality of the image. You got the whole image, right?
And I think that there's some things that are important for that, but I still think if you take
a balance though. Because if all of a sudden I'm just slapping high passes on everything, then I picked the wrong microphones or I picked the wrong. And to our limitations, like I told Kevin, I found this tool that, in layman's terms, makes a cardioid microphone sound like a condenser microphone. And I had to do that because this is the only microphone I had.
Yeah.
So
constraint,
right?
Constraint tool, get the result.
And what's interesting too is because, like, I thought I got a pretty good vocal tone out of that. I wish I had a little bit more low end, but that's another conversation. But if you look at my vocal chain, you can't find anyone online telling you to do it that way.
No.
And if I rearrange it, it changes it. Like I move, and I used all vintage like simulations. But if you put it in a different order, like the order that everyone recommends, it doesn't work. And if I do it from top to bottom the way that people recommend, it didn't work either for what I was trying to get.
Why did you do it?
Because I used my ears. Just mix them with my
Desired
ears.
result.
Exactly.
Constraint, desired result. I do think there's something to that.
Interesting.
Because like, man, I'm trying to think of. Well, I mean, Rick Rubin's a great example. He doesn't know how to do any of the stuff that goes along with recording.
Yeah, that's fair.
But he's producer extraordinaire.
Yeah.
He doesn't know any of the stuff, but
Wamsy said something really prophetic to me by accident, I think. I put on those blue headphones when we were recording your uncle and in this beautiful church. Sounded really nice. And you listen in the room, you put the headphones on, and I just went, sounds the exact same. And I started laughing. I went, that's hilarious. And he was so serious. He was just like is there anything I need to change? And I was like, I don't know. You could just enjoy it. He's like, I'm not getting paid to enjoy it. I'm getting paid to make sure it's right. And I went, oh shit. Like, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And, to that point, if he captures it good, he can enjoy it later. That's the post part that I agree with.
I think there's also something to when you are okay. I think that mentality is one of service, technically, right? Because like it's not about him at that point. It's you're under this bigger banner of the thing.
Yeah.
So like I'll just kind of equate it back to Fry's thing. So it's like bass playing wise, I had to come back and do some stuff because it was what I liked, but it wasn't what was in service for the song.
Yeah.
Right. So it didn't fit the way that it was supposed to be. And I think that's the, like I could go like, no, it's right. I did it. I'm the best. See you later.
Yeah.
Or I'm in service of doing the thing because the vision isn't, like the creativity flow is someone else's and I'm trying to assist in it. Right.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And I think like the service mentality of that is probably what he's hitting the nail on the head of, right? Like his enjoyment can come later. I mean, he can
come
also
from just
be
doing a good job.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
It can come from servicing the need that was met at that day. But it isn't about him.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah, especially because like if I could speak freely, the people that taught him, it was about them.
Yeah.
It was always about them.
Yeah.
And that was a situation where it's like we have too much low in the vocal. Well, I'll fix it. And it's not going to be from turning a mic. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be like, I'll just fix it after, just sing the song. Right. And that's a whole different kind of principle. But
so back to low mids.
Yep. It's all inspired by low mids, at least.
Yeah, no, and you're not wrong. I just think like low mid is like the substance. It's like the meat of the dish.
Yeah.
And
can I just play like 10 seconds of a track and just kind of give you an example here?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Because this was like the first time that I was like, whoa, like that vocal has a low mid to it. You know what I mean?
But that was like when I was experimenting with mixing and stuff, I would send mixes down to Bobby to get him to critique it. And I remember that was like the big thing. He's just like, you don't know what you're doing around 250. And I was just like, what? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm burying it. What are you talking about?
Yeah, literally. I'm taking it all out.
Yeah.
He's just like, that's the meat.
Yeah, that's interesting. But your mixes had a really nice blend of hit and subharmonic. So I actually kind of see what he's coming from. It kind of that smiley face feel.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like if you think about it, like your vocal, your guitars,
everything else sits right in that space, right?
Sometimes your bass.
Yeah.
But bass is usually like 400, something like that. Snare drum, your vocal, like a lot of the key information things like that, the low mid is all of the goodness.
The substance of it.
Because like you can have attack for days, who cares?
Yeah.
But if you don't have like the weight in those mid-range instruments, because that's really what it is. It's like that's the low end of the area that it lives in, right? It's like, yeah, you can go to sub that, but that's not where it lives.
It's different though, yeah.
Right? Like that the meat of those things, those harmonic ranges live there. So why take them away?
Yeah.
You have to treat them well. Like you can't just make it so that everything jumps up because you're going to lose other things.
Yep.
But you have to kind of engage with that information in the ranges that it's supposed to be. And too often we just scoop things and you get it, lots of attack and lots of sub, but like you lose all the goodness.
Yeah. I follow. Listen to this vocal.
You won't break my soul. I'm telling everybody.
You hear all that though?
Yep.
Like it's so rich though.
Well, and you can hear when she just went down to you can actually hear where it's cut.
Okay.
Like there's she drops down and you can hear where the filter starts.
Okay.
And there's a lot of meat in that low mid range of her voice because she's got a powerful voice.
Oh
right?
yeah.
But like she ducked down and you can hear where that lob off is starting.
So, and like what I want to make clear here is I understand that Beyonce's voice naturally has all that there. I'm talking about when they go to give me that back on the record. A lot of the time, it's just standard to pull it like those ranges out, so that you just now have a clear vocal. Especially when you're competing with things like a dance beat and these things that have huge amounts of synthesized information. Like it's just easier to carve room for those things that are going to cause you problems anyways.
Well,
right?
and like when you listen to that, you could have done that.
Yeah.
Like they could have kicked some more high in, and then you could push that rhythmic element further forward and maintain the balance. But then all of a sudden you lose all the kind of like importance of her voice.
That's what I'm
You know
talking
I mean?
about. Yeah.
And that, ironically, that song that I've been talking about, that Bilmuri band.
Oh yeah.
That's my one complaint. That's why I kind of wanted to listen to it with.
What's that?
I don't like how they address the vocal.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say low mid. I'll play it right now.
Well, low mid for sure.
Okay.
But I don't like that they took out the low mid. He's a man. Like he's my age. He's
What's
an
it called?
older dude. I think he's my age. Otherwise, he's aged poorly.
What's it called?
So it's the song's called "Better Hell," but it's by a band called Bilmuri.
Yeah.
which is hilarious.
Thick boy. See how like light the snare drum is?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But that's the same thing. It's high, mid, and up, right?
But if you listen to the guitars, I'll talk about a little bit of what's going on there.
I never talk about you.
Oh yeah.
I never even speak your name.
They're trying to make him sound more boyish,
Because it sits higher in my ear too than the
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than the Beyonce one.
and that's where like the actual track I like a lot. Again, I would probably have a beefier snare drum, but that's just me.
I like the.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, like, but the really cool thing is the low mid information from the guitars. They're doing a really cool like octaver thing with the guitars. I don't even know if there's a real bass.
Oh, okay.
I think they have a sub bass, like a synthy sub bass, and I think it's like guitars with octavers going through different rigs,
Interesting.
and so it creates this really thick sidewall. Like the sidewall information is thick. And then, there's a lot of different information there. But like in the mix, since we were discussing this topic, I was just like, damn, I want more beef to his voice. And I get it. Like when it has that kind of like young poppy punk rock sound, but I don't understand why it needs to be a boy sounding voice.
Yeah, like it doesn't need to be that thin.
Yeah. Well, they did it in the latest Story of the Year record.
Oh, really?
The latest Story of the Year record, they thinned out his voice and he sounds really young.
See, and like
And he's 44. or
the
something,
harder
43.
I hit a console, the harder I mix stuff. Like I understand you have to pull things away just to make room, but like at what point do you stop sacrificing the vocal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I would push back on that a little bit. So we're assembling a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
In terms of a recording. What's at the front of that puzzle?
the vocal.
Build around it. I don't think there's any excuse.
See, that's what I'm saying. I
Take that vocal
Yeah.
and you take the whole rest of it and you build around it.
Yeah.
Don't make the vocal a little tiny boy vocal.
Don't make it fit there at the end, right?
Yeah. Don't make it the afterthought because the thing has to slap.
Yeah.
The thing can slap, but start with the information. Start
Yeah.
with what is this thing supposed to be? And I'm coming down really hard on a song that I actually quite like.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking about that type of approach, it's just one of those like, I don't think that's how you do it. I think you do it the Beyonce way.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what is this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, this is what everybody's listening to.
Mm-hmm.
Like
In pop
we're
music, it's the
listening
vocal.
we're listening to the drums and the guitar and stuff like that. But for most people, they're singing along.
Yeah.
So like, give them the thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like the latest number one, like on the pop countdown
iTunes,
thing.
whatever. Yeah.
Is a song written by Ryan Tedder. I don't know the artist's name,
Okay.
but I was listening to it on the way over here, and you cannot understand what she's saying, but what you hear is the tonality of like 5 or 6K, really aggressive, 5 or 6K,
Interesting.
and then a lot of some note, and that's it. You can't tell what is going on in the voice. Whereas Beyonce, you can hear Beyonce.
Yeah.
Whereas this other person, I don't know who it is. I'm trying to not be judgmental in it, but the production has taken away the character of her voice and put in a produced character.
Interesting.
And I get it. I get why, because it sounds hip and kind of like the rhythm or like the vibe right now for the extreme poppy stuff. but it was one of those like, oh, there's no human voice here.
Yeah.
There's none of the stuff that I would normally equate with a voice, but it's all like this energy thing where it's like this 5-6K energy, almost like a sawtooth synth kind of voice sound.
I know exactly what you're
And
talking
then
about.
like a really heavily compressed note, if you will.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even call it mid-range. I would call it a note.
Yeah. Because it's
And-
like a almost like a 808, but like filling out like harmonic space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're doing to get that.
Yeah.
But I've heard it a number of times now, and I just don't. There's
I think what it is, if this is what I think you're talking about, you remember when like you'd have a whole bunch of like say Whitesnake group vocals and it was all these harmonies, everyone was singing, but then they also had a little keyboard pattern in the background doing the
Yep.
same thing.
Yep.
I think that's extended into the left hand. So
Okay.
so I think that like you can have like take like a reggae like vocal and add like a what up what in bass.
okay.
That follows the exact same pattern, this exact same melody.
Yeah.
It just doesn't actually have like the tonality of a reggae vocalist.
Right.
And all you're gonna get is like it almost sounds like a pog going off in the back.
That's what it seems like.
You know
to
what I
me.
mean? Like-
and I don't know what they're doing, and like the other thing is like it's to a point where I don't know who the human being is on the other end of it.
So here's another vocal example. I think this is a great vocal, a new record. It's called Angel Numbers, but this is a very like he sings into a analog auto-tune unit for his tracking. So it's
Oh,
not
yeah,
corrected
yeah.
after the fact. He's doing
Yeah.
it in time.
Kind of like T-Pain.
Sorta. Less though.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So my thought on that was when you start adding in the call it harmonics, distortion, anything that's going to start compressing it. Like if you look at the wave on an EQ, the low mid is going to be a little bit pulled away because it's a male vocal, it's a tenor vocal, right? There'll be a little bit of weight on the bottom from like the plosions. There'll be like all the mid information. But as you start to compress it, that low mid's going to be more present because the rest of them are going to be closer to the low mid.
Right.
So I was going to argue that doing what they're doing would give you more of that low mid, but it doesn't seem to. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Kind of.
Like if you take all your mid, high, and sub harmonics and you just start compressing them slightly with like a distortion, like something that's naturally going to compress it a little bit, it's not going to compress information that's below those peaking points. So it's going to bring the peaks down until it gets closer and closer, more relatable to those quieter moments, which is
Right.
in a vocal, a male vocal that's a tenor is typically in that low mid. You see what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah.
So now it's going to be like a closer ratio.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be more present.
I mean,
Because same vocal chain.
understand
Chris
it.
Brown and Beyonce is the same vocal chain. They have the same units. I've watched their documentaries. They have the same
very different voice though.
very different voices. I understand that, but you think that there'd still be like I mean, again, different producers. So if the producers start pulling stuff out and changing things and having different approaches, it is going to sound different. But I just thought that there was going to be more of that low weight, similar to the "Break My Soul" on that last track that I played.
And I mean, like again, yeah, you're right. It could have been, but like, however, the mixer decided to deal with it later, maybe that, or even the mastering engineer, like they can mess with that stuff quite a bit.
That's fair.
I think it's Ariana Grande is that newest tune.
Oh, probably. Is it like "Yeah So" or something like that?
Yes, and
Yes, and yeah, that's
think.
it. Yeah. Do you want me to play it?
I think that's it.
I can play
It
it.
says she's number one today.
Yeah. All right, I
Which
got.
like I'm not an Ariana Grande aficionado, and I know people like her a lot.
She's a gearhead.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What they're doing is they separated someone tell me I'm wrong and correct me on this. But they separated that low mid, put it through a distortion or like a telephone mic essentially, and they're just using it as low mid weight. So they're trying to do what I'm trying to talk about.
that makes sense.
But they're not addressing it here, they're addressing it after the fact.
Yeah.
And it's probably to make it on top of this big record. Whoops, I started over.
See, if I was doing that, I'd want to take a vocal mic and throw it through a guitar amp.
Yeah. That's the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you can tell that's her.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I'm just wrong.
No, that's okay.
It was on that. Yeah. Anyways,
If you find it, I'll put it in the
I think it was
description
in the
box.
Hot 100.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was Ryan Tedder's, I guess, fifth number one.
Oh, congratulations.
And like, don't get me wrong, the song was catchy as all get out. I couldn't understand why they would treat the vocal that way. It was just like, but other than making it like a different instrument, it was like almost like, oh, this is a synth or something.
Yeah.
And whereas like
But like, okay, so back to that modern versus vintage. The old way of doing it was I have a singer with a SM58 in a live room with speakers. Even if we don't use that vocal take, it's in the guitar amp.
Yeah.
And it's in the keyboard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you had old situation where you were recording in a room, you're the Guess Who and you're doing it live off the floor, you have one of them meaty saw synths or whatever, and it's catching vocals through the Leslie, like or whatever they had for it in that hypothetical situation, right?
Yeah, the more organic kind of interaction of things. But I don't know. Like I get what you're saying. Like the low mid range is seemingly getting addressed again, and I think like probably parallel compression or not multiband compression is probably really helping with that.
Push stuff in places where it needs to be.
Yeah, and just treat them separately so you can kind of like really fine tune what's getting pulled forward, how much, and
bro, it's getting disgusting. All this modern producing stuff that I'm learning about, and then I want to get off this. So you take the key of the song you're in. So the song that we did was in G minor.
Yeah.
And you take all the notes in the G minor scale, and you find where they relate to the EQ, and you plus 20 them.
Yeah.
In all the positions. So all you're doing, like we used to call this frequency soloing. So if you had a PA sounding real good, and there was a guitar solo and 4K sounding good, I might just grab the EQ a little bit, But now they're doing that in like on the master bus or on the vocal bus and like everything, and just giving you that like extreme, right?
There's an EQ out there that it follows, like it's a pitch derived EQ. There's a few that make it now, but it was like really new, like a year or two ago, or maybe longer. I don't really know. But basically, that was the idea. You fed it the key, and it'll follow along, and you just basically tell it how many dB you want it, and it'll give you like sympathetic, and then main like resonant frequencies and things like that.
Melodic
and you can choose how many of which you want to push forward.
Interesting.
And it'll just follow along.
Huh.
So the idea being that like no matter what, it's kicking through.
Yeah.
I don't love that idea. It just seems a little bit too like I don't know. I still tend to think a little bit more old school, a little bit more like, does it sound good? Set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Like I don't really want something following through on every note personally.
Yeah.
Because that again, it just makes me feel like I did something wrong.
That's like you and me have very similar thoughts on automating. Like if I'm automating every beat, like then I mixed it wrong.
Yeah,
like,
really. Like if you can't have all faders up and be happy, like pretty
within
damn
reason,
close. You know what I mean? Like you need to do a little, but like if you're an automation guy where you just things are swooping around and like do it different. Like I don't know. Maybe I
don't know enough about it, but
maybe I'm just stuck in it. But it's just one of those like I still think that there's got to be some approach to the front end of it a little bit more. I know that that's all a part of it and there are tools and things like that, but it's just one of those like, as long as you did that in the front, okay, do it all after. But like, if it's just a matter of like
laziness.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just want to make sure that it's getting approached well in the front end. And as long as it's getting approached well in the front end, I don't really care what you do after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't like the shortcut idea.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm driving at.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. All right, let's get out of music.
All right.
You asked me to start watching Fool Me Once, and I had it on my Netflix, but we realized we only had like 4 episodes or 5 episodes left of Suits. So I haven't started it yet.
That's fair.
Well, why don't you tell us about it? Don't spoil it for me, though.
Well, it just reminded me of Reacher a little bit.
Okay.
So the idea is like this lady, she was a helicopter pilot in the war, and while she's away, her sister gets murdered.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we got a Taken and a Reacher situation.
Yeah. Okay. And then like a few months later, when she's back home, her husband gets murdered.
Oh, Taken 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a miniseries. It's a British miniseries, and it's like kind of like a whodunit. You don't really know what's going on. You really don't know what's going on till like the second last episode.
Awesome.
And it's pretty darn good. I liked it.
Is it is it comedic? Is it like one-liner heavy? Is it serious?
It's serious.
Is it, okay.
It's very serious.
Okay.
In my opinion, it's
That's
quite
fine.
serious. But it just led me to this interesting thing of like, okay, well, it was 8 episodes long, 40-ish minutes per episode or whatever. So if you add those together, that's like 4 or 5 hours of content. And it's a well-told story that has a lot of room to breathe.
Okay.
So my question is, why don't we do more of that?
Okay.
And should that be the directions that movies head?
See, as you were saying that, I went, oh, is that going to be the new movies? But then I went, like, how do you have that many moments in your roller coaster.
Well, it's a big story.
That's fair. That is fair. But like,
Because like if you think about, okay, well, like all these Marvel movies and things like that, right? Like we're telling a big story.
Yeah.
And then we get this idea of like, oh, 3-hour movie, that's crazy. But everything's 3 hours now.
That's what I'm
because
saying.
they're getting the ability to tell a bigger story.
and the
more
story
ways.
is getting more and more important too. Like people are paying attention to, even like in the subculture categories of like the cult followings of each show, like or whatever, you know, it's getting way, way, way more. I guess like there's availability of information, and then everyone's putting their character into it too. So that story becomes more valuable because it's like it's almost a part of it has its own life.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
its
yeah.
own, right?
Yeah, because
Okay.
there's this like I don't know, community element outside of it or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I think books have that
Yep.
more so than movies do. I think that's also one of the reasons that they always say, "Well, the book's way better than the movie." Yeah, probably because you just have more time
Yeah.
within the universe of it or whatever. Like I don't necessarily think there's the rush.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it has to be. We need to show it in theaters. There's this like limitations. Now, ironically, I was the guy saying you need to put in more limitations to
Yeah.
get the art forward. But like, I'm just saying, like, okay, if you have a really well formed story that is going to take more time than one, but it isn't going to be a thing where you're like, hey, let's do 190 episodes because it's just shenanigans every episode and it doesn't really matter. But if you have like a story that you need to tell, I think it's better to give it that kind of like breathing room.
Yeah, I got you.
You know what I mean?
But that is kind of like a constraint though, because put any limitation on it, you get 8 episodes,
Right.
right? Or I don't know enough about like cinema cameras and stuff like that, but like you can't AI and CGI things. You have to tell the whole story through like what you have at hand, right? Because like okay, so let's do this. If you have the indie market start flooding that, and if you and I start making long form movies, we'll call them,
Yeah.
then a lot of that is going to be like back to the art of the self creator.
Yeah.
Right. So like, because even pitch that, like if I want to make a movie that's stretched over 8 episodes and I just swear that it's going to work, I have to find a way to make it work. Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
So interesting. Okay.
Because like I don't know, for me it was like you could take that whole thing, the whole thing that I saw, you could put it in a movie for sure. But the problem is you don't have the ability to care as much, in my opinion. Like if I were to watch that movie, that'd be one of those like, oh yeah, cool, I watched it, and I'll probably never think of it again unless it's brought up into conversation. But for me, that 8 episode arc, it's like, okay, well, I understand more about the characters. And I think Reacher kind of does this too. Like it's 8 episodes, but it's like a different book for each series, right? And I think that might be what I'm driving at. Is like if you get these book type ideas, giving them the right room to breathe so that you have the ability to interact with each character and understand the weight of the situations, rather than they're just like, oh yeah, this person's here and now they're gone.
Well, yeah, because they always
should
end
care.
up jumping the shark, right? Like you get to the end of the movie and now it's like, oh, this guy shows up, he's rich and he's got superpowers,
Yep.
and he's also invincible. So like,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
Well, and I think like
You
maybe-
have time to develop all that shit and let them show up a little bit.
and if you look at like the Marvel concept in general, like
That's where I was going with that.
you have all these like, yeah, they're these kind of packaged movies, but you do have all this history moving into them, right? Like
Because like we could watch a side series on the what was his name, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man,
Yep.
or whatever. Like we like there could be a whole section of like other content to go along with that in these miniseries forms still, so that
but
you
if
could
you
get to
needed
know
to
the
be in a
characters more.
theater,
It'd be impossible.
yeah.
So now here's a question though. Do you remember when we used to do bros nights and we used to
Yes.
like go to the movies and stuff? Do you think that like a movie used to be more of an event? Now it's going back to like are we getting back to like an art? A love for art?
Well, I think like maybe an enjoyment of experience.
Because I hated watching TV and movies. Maybe I just grew up, but I like sitting down and like taking it in now. But a
Yeah.
part of that is because like there's so much content out there that like I can't watch or engage with a lot of shows that I watch because they watch things that I don't watch.
Yeah, I get that.
You know what I mean?
I completely know that.
That was a lot, but
No, I literally said that last night. I said, man, there's so much stuff out there that is not for me.
yeah.
And it's for a lot of people, and I will never interact with it.
Yeah.
But there's tons of it.
There's tons of it. And yeah, I just want to apologize. I feel like I'm jumping around everywhere and it's actually a lot of fun. But yeah, it's just like it's an interesting thing, man, because I do think that the freedom of the art is going to play into it. That's assumedly going to put constraints on it. And maybe we'll get what you're talking about.
Maybe. But I think like being able to embrace the idea of overcoming the constraint, whatever that constraint might be, I think is going to be huge. Because like even if you say this went one step further, where things get cheaper to do because technology is better, but puts it into the place where it can be created without as many. Okay, I would say there are constraints that are forced upon somebody. So if you think about like getting a number one hit, how many constraints are there that aren't actual constraints?
Oh, there's too many.
Right?
Yeah.
And what I'm meaning by that is like the gatekeeper mentality.
Yeah, well, if,
right?
if I post it at the wrong time and the algorithm misses it, then it's not going to number one,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Even if it has everything there to be number one, it's just I missed something that is.
Yeah, it just didn't fall within the boundary and like the business element of it and that kind of thing too. So I guess like it does force creativity, but it's a different type of constraint. The creation, it's like there's a difference between like the creation constraints and the presentation constraint. Because like to get it so that you can birth it in a way that you wanted to have it done, that doesn't necessarily mean that it gets ingested by people, right?
So do you think that there'll be a forgiveness? Like if I'm not Michael Bay, but I still filmed something that was badass and then you found out it was just with my phone?
Yeah, of course.
Like, do you think that will create a forgiveness and then again an availability to those types of creators stepping into that field?
Well, I think when you have an abundance of creation, I think the quality of the creation is the thing that's going to speak for it rather than the name behind it.
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying.
Because
Yeah.
like for a long time, if you were a Michael Bay, you were given tons of money to do the thing, and then your name got put on all this stuff. So the constraints, the externalized constraints was because there was less things out there. So if you made something half decent, your name was out there, you had the recognition, and then all of a sudden your name can be used to bring in more attention towards other creative endeavors.
Well, and people will give you like a bias if they like your name just because they know who you are.
Yeah.
But if you strip that out,
Well, I think then it's kind of what you're going to engage with first, most likely nowadays, is the content before you understand who created it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I think the creative content leads first now, rather than the name behind it.
I like that.
'Cause
It's
I think,
no
like-
longer the new Sony record, it's the artist record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I mean, in the show that I watched, I mean, they're British actors, so maybe they're more famous in England, but nobody was gonna watch that show because of the people that was in it, aside from their performance within it. Right?
Interesting. Yeah.
So their creative expression within it wasn't the thing to get. Their name wasn't the thing to get the eyeballs on it. I got this show put in front of me because someone watched it and said, "Hey, you should start it," and I did, and I liked it as quality, so therefore I continued on with it.
But see, like I like that though because I'm the guy to go watch a movie and not understand that I just saw one of the most famous actresses in the world on the stage or whatever,
Yeah.
or like on the screen, right? And like the impact of that does nothing to me,
Yeah.
just because I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So like if I'm confident that like this is just like it could be anybody, then that's almost like freeing to me, I guess, or like
Well, you can engage with what it
removes my
is.
constraint.
Yeah, honestly.
Theme of the episode today, constraints.
Yeah, constraints.
That might be misleading.
Well, okay, so like if you go see The Rock in a movie,
Yep. You know what you're getting into.
who is he in the movie? Is he a character or is he The Rock as a character?
I mean, he's just The Rock as a character.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So it's not really about the performance.
Yeah.
It's about the person
It's
doing
about The Rock,
performance.
yeah.
And I think that thing is done pretty well.
Sweet. I'm for it.
Sort of. It's going to make it so those people are going to be frustrated
Yeah.
because, the idea that you're going to get notoriety and success just because of the name associated with you rather than what you produce. Because, like, if he goes out and makes a bad movie, guess what? It's going to be a bad movie,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter that The Rock's in it.
Yeah.
Kind of what happened with Black Adam. Like, that thing did not do well because it was not a good movie.
So do you think that there'll be like eventually, like let's just say that this happens. We're predicting the future right now.
All right, I like it.
And it's just going to go into this like creator market in movies and TV and everything. Everything on Netflix is all independent, all that stuff. You're going to have all these huge media companies, employees and equipment. And even when they get stripped back and scaled out and they sell off half their shit, still going to have like people who can delegate and run big teams for big movie sets. So I wonder if that becomes the like, hey man, I have a dream and I need you to be a part of it. And Buddy goes, this would normally be like a $2 million project, but I'm in. You know what I mean? Because like A, you need the work. B, you get to be creative the way that like, you know, they sold you the dream when you started, right?
I mean, I guess it depends.
Because like I could
Depends
walk
on
up,
the mortgage.
I
You know?
because like I know this for a fact, when I was in my band, when you were in your band, if I called a sound guy and said, hey man, I got this gig, I really believe in the gig, I really believe in my band, but we don't have very much money to pay you, they'd be like, call someone else. But now if I called them up and said, and my relationship to them might help a little bit, but if I called them up and said, hey man, we're putting together this great show, it's all indie driven, there's gonna be some fun bands, we'll help you set up, we'll help you tear down, we're gonna have a great time, bet you every one of them shows up. From like a working perspective, like to show up and do the thing, right? So that's more exciting today.
I think it depends as to their perspective.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because if their perspective, well, we've talked about this. There's so
Sounds-
many people that
Technicians
like,
getting railed right now, bro. There ain't nothing going on out there.
well, but what I mean is like some people's perspective is from an element of wanting to create, and some people's perspective is wanting, how would you describe it?
Legacy,
No,
notoriety,
I,
freedom.
I'd say there's job and there's work, right? Like having pride in your work. I think good work is a concept that seems to be missed, and doing a good job of something and being proud of the thing that you've done. Whereas I think the job part of it, we have an equation of what that means to us. And I think if you're looking at something as like, I want to do a good job, and by doing a good job, I think that I will be properly compensated, either fiscally or emotionally or whatever. But the idea of that pride of ownership of that part allows more freedom in terms of how you look at it financially. Whereas if it's just a job, it's like, no, I need this amount of money to commit myself time-wise to this XY thing. Because like in work, sometimes things take more time, but the job being done and feeling accomplished through it is the more important part. And whereas the job, it's like, no, if it takes more time, I need more money, because it's not pride
not
of
about the
ownership,
job
it's not
anymore,
work,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like that type of concept we struggle with, because we've now defined everything as like, if you want to put yourself, like we have a job mentality in our world right now.
Yeah.
For most people.
Yeah.
Right? Like your hours to dollars makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
But it's your
pennies.
work.
It's pennies.
But it's your work, right? Like this is the thing that you can be proud of, how you do it and grow, and you have pride of ownership over it.
Yeah.
It's not the same as looking at it as like your job, because then all of a sudden that math equation doesn't work out and you're like, hell no, I'm not doing this no more.
Yeah.
And
But I believe in what I'm creating.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm like arguing, like if I'm a cinema company and there's no work really being had out there and everyone's doing this other thing, I might just be excited to be a part of it, just be creative again, right?
no, I think that's a possibility if there are people with the right perspective, right?
Yeah.
And that's basically what I'm saying. I think the perspective element of that is going to dictate whether or not people would be even open to that concept.
Interesting.
Like conceptually, as them being able to understand that idea.
Yeah.
Because like if you don't have that perspective,
Get back to the way things were.
yeah. If you don't have that perspective, you can't ingest that idea. It will be cognitive dissonance for you.
Yeah.
It will not make sense that anybody does that ever.
Yeah.
So I think if you are surrounded by those people, like good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. Interesting. It's kind of interesting. The perspective thing I'm going to use to lean into the show that I watched. Danielle and I watched this show it's a movie called Age of Adeline. I also did not know who the actress was, the lead actress in that. She's really famous.
Isn't it?
I want to say Natalie Portman.
No,
or-
it's not.
You-
It's not Natalie Portman.
No.
but I know
Anyway.
Harrison Ford's in it.
Is he?
I saw that. In the
Oh
trailer.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So anyway, I won't spoil it for you, but she's it's like in the 1930s or 40s or something like that. She's a young woman, she's beautiful. She gets in a car accident, and there's like at that same moment there's like a storm and like an electrical storm, and it like defibrillates her heart, but it like stills her like body so she doesn't age. Is the whole idea.
Whoa.
Yeah. So she's like this hot 27-year-old for the rest of her life.
Crazy.
But like I thought that there'd be an expiry on that still because I thought like the organs would deteriorate and like you're 27 and you're like, man, that's like nothing works anymore. But she was like 100 and something like throughout the movie, right? And then what I thought was interesting was you meet her daughter, who she had when she was at some age, you know.
Yeah.
But the daughter didn't get that. The daughter ages, right?
She ages.
So one of the biggest trips for me, and again, I'm not going to spoil it all for you, is she like hurts herself. She's like the doctor, and the daughter walks in, and they have to play it off like, "Oh, hey, mom." But it's like it's the other way around, right? But yeah, it was really interesting, man, and it really like just made me sit back and like think about things for a sec because like how many things she missed, how many things that she took the time to learn. Like there's one scene where she's sitting there reading Braille.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, what else are you gonna do with your time? Right?
So
And
immortal?
I don't quite know.
Just ageless.
Just ageless, yeah. Like, and there's like a narrator in it for like a minute, and so they tell you like what's going on, and they explain it. And I was like, kind of. I always look for the comedy in things. I'm waiting for it to be a comedy, and I'm like,
somebody throw a pie.
this one's for. If there's any Kevins out here, get your voicemail ready.
Exactly.
Yeah, so like I'm always waiting for that. But it was one of those movies where it was just like perspective is kind of interesting. Yeah, and I would actually recommend watching it for that. I'd watch it with Tisha, but
So then that leads me to a deeper question. Say you had that.
yep.
Say you're stuck here forever.
Yep.
Well, not forever. Let's say,
Until like an act of God happens.
sure,
Yeah.
train
Sure.
or something.
Yep. Bad luck.
But like, what does the world look like, or what does existence look like if the main limitation that we all go through, which is this kind of like ramping up and then ramping down.
So let me preface this with this. She keeps it a secret because she doesn't want to get poked and prodded.
Makes sense to me.
Right? So that I think would change the whole thing because like I'd just be waiting to wake up dead. Like
How you gonna wake up dead?
unless you a zombie. But no, like, cause like, I don't know if it's year 80, 85, 90, like I'd be sitting there going like, man, this, like, sure, I look young, but like what's actually going on here? And I've never seen a doctor. I've never told anybody about this. I have no idea what my health is like. I have no idea how I even ended up in this situation. So I see it as being one of two ways. You either got infinite fuck yes, just launching off the roof and chasing ducks,
That's
and
where I'd
fighting
go.
chickens and all the shit, or you live like in absolute terror and fear of just like of going through the same human cycle, just not knowing what the hell's going on and not being able to ask anybody. That was the two things that I thought about the whole time.
That is the, when you talk about like things being valuable to you. So like, we have this natural understanding of constant degradation, right?
Yeah.
It's like inevitability over time. We can see ourselves in relation to this concept of ours. But, if you took that same idea, but like, okay, well, you don't have any ability to die unless something kills you. So say no disease, no anything. You're just going to keep on aging. And
As long as I don't get hit by a car,
then all of a sudden,
eaten by a
how
cougar.
important is it to be safe at all times?
Oh, I would just live and live and live and live.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So like, those things could kill you though, right?
Yeah, I was just, they haven't killed me yet. I haven't gotten hit
I
by a
don't
car
know.
yet.
I don't know,
if my
man.
cognitive doesn't deteriorate and I'm not worried about crossing the street and not looking both ways or something like that, like I'm good. Made it this far. Let's go.
All right. I don't know, man.
We're going to find out pretty soon because we're getting chickens here. We're getting goats here. We're going to have...
I just find it as an interesting idea. Like, there's an acceptance of, like that something will be around the corner eventually, whether or not it's a bus or whether or not it's like old age or whatever. But if you take the old age element out of it, and the only thing that drives your fear is the external world killing you.
So, A, I don't have a fear of dying, and B, I don't think that age is out to get me.
No, I'm okay. I agree with you. Because I'm in the same
That
boat.
got way deeper than it needed to be.
No, I think you did great. But like the drive to self-preserve exists, right?
Of course.
That's why.
So that's why I'm saying if you took the major majority of that away, the one thing that I can't control, then I just live free, bro.
Wow. I mean, that's probably the more beautiful way to look at it. I think people would get extra paranoid.
Huh, interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
'cause-
like if they'd be trying to nerf the world.
Because like I'm not gonna lie, man. Like when I hear like weird sounds out here in the like the sticks, I think we said, and I go out there, like I am terrified. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
And that isn't gonna change just because age can't get me.
Yeah.
So like I'm still gonna be a cautious human being.
Yeah, I'm just curious if it would be more so.
Oh, I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think so. Unless it's just age, because like I'd say I'd just like start eating food and drinking drinks and doing all this stuff. Then all of a sudden you eat one of them mushrooms that just puts you under. And you just squandered your whole gift, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, if I like had what I have going on right now, I would just live. I would just milk this farm as best I can, keep them coyotes away, tell people to drive slow.
Slower,
Some
anyways.
speed bumps up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lots of speed bumps.
Yeah, check out Age of Adeline. It was interesting.
Okay, I will.
there is like a few insightful moments where it's just like interesting. Like that is a perspective I'd have never thought about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be weird too, because like you couldn't really be prioritizing long-term relationships.
Oh, she avoids them.
Yeah, you'd have to.
Yeah. So there's one scene. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but this guy's trying to ask her out, and she says no. She says you had no right to follow me here, and now I'm moving.
Wow.
And like it's like that's the extreme of it. It's like, huh. Yeah.
That's crazy. It would make sense though. Like you can't. It's kind of like the Superman idea.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, well, can't really be close to people because you're risking a lot.
Yeah.
In order to do so.
Well, imagine like you finally open up to someone and you tell them your big long secret and they just sell you out to doctors and especially like in the 30s, throwing leeches at you, trying to see if you're gonna get some wrinkles. Take this cocaine.
Liquid cocaine.
Liquid cocaine.
It's in all of our pop.
Man, that's about all the chatting I got for today. You got anything else?
No, it's good.
Okay,
I like it.
I want to end this off with I want your feedback on my friend Tommy's song since we did do a little music today.
Dig it.
This is called Guts by Tommy Graves. And I'm just going to press play. It's kind of like emo rap punk. But he's got a new producer and maybe someone making new beats for him. But here we go.
All my friends, I think they hate my guts, but they promise me honestly, homie, that's not the case.
Oh, I like
I
this.
feel addicted, like I need it or something. I want smiling and laughter and that look on your face. I've been looking both ways, catch me on the drive. They don't want to expect it, act like something I'm not. Maybe I could be someone worthy alive. Sick of being a DJ and always wasting my shots, always spilling my drinks, hungry eating my words. Another boat that I'll sink. You could probably try to stop me, I don't mind. A little bit of this and I'll be fine.
It's kind of clever, right?
Hate my guts. I've been looking both ways, catch me on the drive. They don't want to expect it, act like something I'm not. Maybe I could be someone worthy alive. Sick of being a DJ, always wasting my shots, always spilling my drinks.
I like a picked P bass.
Right.
It's always
All
great.
my friends, I think they hate my guts, but they promise me honestly, homie, that's not the case and I'm bluffing. I feel sedated or something.
I love when they use, like, real instruments.
Oh
yeah.
Or at least close to.
Got much to say, no he doesn't. Too much to say when I'm buzzing. Think it's insane, but okay with people who names I don't fuck with. Who you loving? 10 toes, 10 times that I asked this month, I'm kid, are you mad at me? Cause I'm not that reassured or maybe confident, and I don't understand the gravity of what I'm saying. And I talk too much and you think I'm playing, but I'm not convinced when I'm not around that you think the best, so I wrote it down. I think they hate
Whoa. Go back.
He's good, eh?
That was crazy rhythm.
the flow switch there.
Oh my word.
Did you hear what he's saying too?
Kind of, but like I was just impressed by the like that was whew.
Turned it up a little bit.
He did a like that was a very inventive rhythmic switch.
Yeah, he's like ahead of the beat with like a pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
there was almost like a time change there. I don't really like this is where like I'm so bad with lyrics and
That's
stuff like
okay.
that. But that reminded me of like, you know, when you hear a drummer do a drum solo.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it seems like they go out of time to go straight back into time.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Oh, bro, I relate rappers to drummers
All the time.
100% of the time. 100% of the time. Okay, I backed it up.
And I'm missing conversation, no issue with traces of substance. Got much to say, no he doesn't. Too much to say when I'm buzzing. Think it's insane, but okay with people who names I don't fuck with who you loving. And 10 toes, 10 times that I asked this month, I'm kid, are you mad at me? Cause I'm not that reassured and maybe confident, and I don't understand the gravity of what I'm saying.
Wow.
I talk too much and you think I'm playing, but I'm not convinced when I'm not around that you think the best, so I wrote it down. I think they hate my guts.
So he says,
Man, that was good.
you say I talk too much, but, or something like that, but he says, but I'm not. And then the bar stretches or the line stretches the bar.
Yeah.
Or the bar stretches the line, however you want to say that. So he says, but I'm not convinced. So he's, you know what I mean? So he says, you're calling me something and I'm not that.
Yeah.
And then he keeps it going by saying, I'm convinced. And then he keeps the next line going,
Man.
right? It's clever, bro. It's really clever.
That's good.
Yeah.
In both ways, catch me on the drive. They don't want to expect it. Act like something I'm not. Maybe I could be someone worthy alive. Sick of being a DJ and always wasting my shots. I've been looking both ways. Catch me on the drive. They don't want to expect it. Act like something I'm not. Maybe I could be someone worthy alive. Sick of being a DJ and always wasting my shots. Always spilling my drinks. Hungry, eating my words. Another boat that I'll sink. You could probably try to stop me. I don't mind. A little bit of this and I'll be fine. I hope they hate my guts.
That's Guts by Tommy Graves.
Good job.
Yeah, man. Okay, y'all. Thanks for hanging out, Kev.
Yeah, you bet.
This is episode 26 of The Gong Show.
All right. I like it.
I appreciate y'all being here. We'll see you on the next one. All right. I felt like I was scattered today.
Me too.
Like scattered.
Whatever. We were